Hello there, Brick Fanatics. There are a bunch of LEGO sets on the horizon which have been approved, which are currently in production, but which have not yet been fully revealed in their final form. The LEGO Ideas theme is one of the more interesting of the LEGO themes because fans get to have a say on what actually turns up in the theme. Fan designers submit their ideas, fans then throw their support behind the ones that they think are the absolute coolest and need to be official LEGO sets, and then there is a very long, lengthy process during which professional LEGO designers go through these builds, rework them, tweak them, make them more in line with everything else that we would expect of a LEGO set. And this often involves changing a fair amount of the design, but one way or the other it involves taking a lot of time. This being the case, we know what is coming for the LEGO Ideas theme over the next couple of years because the designs have been approved and we're just waiting on the LEGO designers to finish their work before these things get rolled out. Now, last week a couple of new designs were approved and added to the list of LEGO sets in production for the LEGO Ideas theme. So in this video we are going to run through the entire list of everything that the LEGO group is currently working on, everything that has been approved thus far, so that we can give you a heads up on what is coming in the near to late future. Now, there are certain rumours floating around about when some of these might be showing up. We are paying no heed to rumours in this video. I'm just going to give you the facts as they exist. Bear in mind that this video will probably age like milk because it won't be too long before some of these start showing up. Just bear that in mind. If you feel the need, go down into the comments and let us know that this, that, or the other LEGO set has already released if you're watching this video in like February of 2026. And while you're there, you might as well hit the thumbs up button and the subscribe button and the notification bell. Also, if you are planning on buying any LEGO Ideas sets in the near future, do make sure that you use the affiliate link which is down in the description or the QR code that is currently on screen. They take you straight to the LEGO website. We get a percentage of the sale. It's just a very easy way for you to help out the channel. Doesn't cost you a penny that you weren't already going to spend. If I can just interject there for a second, I'm talking to you from the future. Well, actually it's from the past, but it's from slightly less of the past than the rest of this video. As I mentioned earlier this week in our Wallace and Gromit / XFiles video, while making this video on all of the upcoming LEGO Ideas sets, the LEGO group had the audacity to announce 2 more. So, very quickly, in addition to all of the other LEGO sets in this video, we have the XFiles The Truth Is Out There by Wet Wired and Wallace and Gromit by Pedalium. These two are still quite a ways off actually releasing. Everything else in the video is probably going to come out before them, but because this is a video on every single LEGO Ideas set, I felt I needed to mention that. Right, with that said, it's time to talk about the brilliant looking Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roberto Cerruti and Jody Padulano. It's the kind of LEGO set that either makes you want to sing or makes you think about horribly scarring children for life. Either you're looking at this and you're thinking, oh, it's a world of pure imagination, or you're looking at this and thinking, poor Augustus Gloop stuck in that vent. And of course, Chocolate River, scary boat ride, why not? It is a shame that if this thing sticks to its approximate size, it is going to be a bit too small for the LEGO Ideas riverboat. You can probably get one of the Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse boats alongside this, and that should work very well. But either way, it's an inelegant solution, and one can only hope that we get Scary Willy Wonka Nightmare Ride as a LEGO set in the future after this one. I do imagine there's a lot of scope for things to change here. I can imagine a slightly different waterfall, for example. I'm definitely expecting a bunch of these minifigures to change. I'm hoping, despite the fact that it's called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that this sticks with the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory film kind of vibe here. No shade to the Tim Burton one, but we've got enough Tim Burton LEGO sets for the moment. Let's have one with Gene Wilder in it. Either way though, I do recommend you don't get too attached to this design because I feel like a fair amount of this is going to change. The next oldest of these designs is Italian Riviera by Alex Sali. This is one which, in its current design, looks very modular adjacent, and I'm very interested to see what happens on that front, because where we had the botanical garden previously, that looked like it was very clearly meant to be modular adjacent, and then just had a few little bits taken out of it in order to make it not quite so modular-esque. This one, it feels like, is so modular, especially with that big blank wall on one side, where it's very clearly designed to be smooshed up alongside a bunch of other similar buildings. I can see the LEGO designers softening that a little bit, maybe just giving a little bit of breathing space in there to make this feel like a collection of standalone buildings, a set that can be displayed in and of itself rather than having to be alongside a bunch of other modulars. I'll also be interested to see how much this colour scheme changes, because I do quite like the bright colours here, but I can also imagine that that might be one area where the LEGO designers feel like they could spruce things up, change things up, do something slightly different. One of the challenges with a lot of these LEGO Ideas sets is that you get so attached to the fan project designs for these things, the original versions, that when you then see the finished thing, you kind of think to yourself, oh, well, it's not quite what I had in mind. That is unfortunately just the nature of the beast. It's not something that I feel like necessarily criticising anyone at the LEGO group for, it's just how things end up working out. The good news is we have something like the Bricklink Designer Program now to be the more one-to-one translation of whatever it is the fans have created, and here with LEGO Ideas we get something that ends up, yes, being a little bit more LEGO groupified in the process of turning it into an official set. Now, one of the best things about the LEGO Ideas theme is that fans get to play around with a lot of intellectual property that otherwise might not necessarily get the LEGO treatment, and get to suggest to the LEGO group, hey, what about, for example, a The Goonies LEGO set? Something that is a little bit more expansive than the LEGO Dimensions set. The Goonies 1985 by Delusion Brick was approved as a LEGO set on August 14th, 2024. It is a big old pirate ship in a year that is increasingly full of big old pirate LEGO sets, and I love it. So I actually remembered that I've got this and it is still sealed at the moment. You know that moment where LEGO Dimensions was kind of phasing out and a bunch of toy shops were like, we really need some more space, we got to shift these units. This is one we see with this little red sticker on it that was significantly reduced in a shop that I happened to be in, and I was like, yes, absolutely, why not? So I've got, oh, look at this, I've got Sloth, of course dressed like Superman, which is so much fun. I've got One-Eyed Willie's pirate ship here, and the skeleton organ, which is what comes in this. And this, up until now, had been all of the Goonies that we had had in LEGO form. And of course, there's a bunch of stuff that you can actually play in the game as well if you were to put these little discs onto your LEGO Dimensions pad, whatever that thing was called. It was great that we got a bunch of these LEGO Dimensions licensed things, a bunch of things that otherwise weren't really going to get the LEGO treatment, but it is just a little bit of a tease at the same time. You had something like Sonic the Hedgehog, for example, which seemed so perfect for a LEGO theme, and yet we only had the Sonic minifigure and a couple of other builds for a while, until finally LEGO Ideas turned up, and with that brilliant Green Hill Zone set, just convinced the LEGO group that, okay, yeah, actually, maybe we should be making more Sonic stuff. Now the Goonies is making the same jump from LEGO Dimensions into LEGO Ideas, and while I don't imagine that we're going to get the same kind of expansive Goonies theme down the line here, I do think that this is going to be a set which is going to appeal to fans of 1980s nostalgia and, as mentioned, pirate ships. With that set and with all of these sets, we don't have any dates for when these things are going to be showing up, but it having been quite a while now since the Goonies set was approved, one would hope that it is going to be in the nearish future, if not immediately, then certainly a little ways down the line. Now, speaking of 80s nostalgia properties making the jump from LEGO Dimensions into LEGO Ideas, we also have Gizmo by rumour. This one was approved at the same time as the Goonies. Rather than being minifigure scale here, we've got a brick-built Gizmo from the Gremlins franchise. This is a pretty cute build in and of itself. I do hope for one very simple change. Given that the LEGO group has a previous mould for Gizmo in minifigure form, it would be really nice if, like a bunch of LEGO Star Wars builds, this one came with a Gizmo minifigure, just to make that minifigure a little bit more available than it is at the moment. It's not impossible to get hold of that Dimensions minifigure, but it could be easier, and I would just like the LEGO group to help out LEGO minifigure collectors here a little bit and just sweeten the deal here with this particular build. Otherwise, rumour's brick-built Gizmo looks pretty perfect in and of itself without any adjustments, so this is one that I would imagine maybe might not see huge changes in its design in the same way that I expect Charlie and the Chocolate Factory might have a dramatic overhaul. Now, in November of 2024, DDF-72's Mineral display got approved for the LEGO Ideas program and is going to be turned into a LEGO set. This is a fascinating, very different kind of LEGO set. It is a bunch of rocks on a display shelf. They're very, very pretty rocks, but they're not necessarily something that I think the LEGO Group would have considered turning into a LEGO set had DDF72 not come along and said, yeah, but look how cool these things are. Again, this is one that I can imagine changing a fair amount. I can see the LEGO Group trying to position this alongside botanical sets, for example, as something which is showing off the wonders of nature, albeit in a less flowery form and in a more rocky form. Now, given that this project was approved in 2024, I imagine it's probably quite a way along now, but if I could give one piece of advice to the LEGO designers, one thing that I feel is lacking from the original design here, the project that has been approved, it is some kind of plaque explaining what these things are, because it's all very well to see a bunch of cool looking rocks, but if you have a little thing that you can read that says this is gold, or this is a geode, or this is what have you, then that would just make it a little bit more fun as a display piece, make it feel a little bit more like a little kind of natural history museum in LEGO form in the house. Next up, Lovebirds by Modular Maniac, which won the Build from the Heart contest and is a pair of cute looking birds on a tree. I really enjoy the colour scheme from this one. I imagine that a fair amount of this one is going to shift and change, but we'll have to wait and see what that actually looks like when we get it. It's still going to be a little ways off, I imagine, because this one was approved just earlier this year in February, but I can imagine it having a kind of dramatic overhaul, and for the LEGO Group to give it, I don't know, like a base maybe, and maybe spruce it up in different ways to kind of swap around the tree. Those little birds, though, are pretty solid, and I would like to keep them in relatively the same form, although thinking about it, it would be kind of funny if the LEGO Group gave them the same kind of gormless expression that we get on Jaws the shark. It just would be quite cute and funny. Floating Sea Otter by Maximilian Lambrecht was approved in March of this year, so this one's probably still quite a ways off. I do think it is absolutely adorable. I really like this build. In fact, I want two of them because sea otters are a brilliant animal that I love, and one cool fact about sea otters is that they sleep holding hands so that they don't get separated in the night. That, and they'll have like a favourite rock that they use as a tool in order to smash open shells and things and get food out. It's just wonderful to think they've got like a little pocket, and this is just one of those fun quirks of nature. They've got like a little pocket in their tummies that they can hold their favourite special rock, and they'll get it out and they'll play with it, and then they'll use it as a tool to get food out. And basically sea otters are the best, and I want them in LEGO form. Fingers crossed that this LEGO set does allow you to get two sea otters to hold hands together. I feel like with the design as it is in its current form, the sea otter is quite in the middle of this display base. I would kind of like to just shunt them over a little bit so that two can be next to each other and holding hands. It would just be adorable. Anyway, moving on, the next one on the list, approved at the same time as the sea otters, is Snoopy Campfire by Bosofdos64, also known as Robert Becker. Charles Schulz's Peanuts is one of the definitive comics of the 20th century. You can gain an awful lot of understanding about that century just by looking at the first of those comics in the 1950s and then the last of them all the way through in the 1990s. Ostensibly, it's a comic about the anxieties of being a child, but it doesn't take much reading of it for any adult to see a lot of themselves in Charlie Brown and Peppermint Patty and all the other characters as well. But while Charlie Brown is the more relatable of these characters, Snoopy, often accompanied by Woodstock, is the one that sells the most merchandise. As such, it's not a surprise to see good old Charlie Brown given the short end of the stick here and left out of his own LEGO set. One interesting thing about Peanuts is that it really embodies its author, Charles Schulz, in a way that you don't often see in creative media. There have been various different Peanuts projects since the death of Schulz, but none of them have really quite got it completely 100% right. I'm not saying anything negative about them, I'm just saying that there is a spark there, a particular joy, a particular flavour that you get from a Charles Schulz Peanuts comic that you don't get from anything else. I'm probably going to do a longer, more in-depth history lesson video on Peanuts when we actually get this LEGO set, whenever that happens to be, but just one little story I wanted to tell about the ending of the Peanuts comic. The final Peanuts comic appeared in newspapers on the 13th of February 2000. The comic had run for decades and decades, but it was clear that Schulz was just coming to the end of his time writing it and drawing it, and so it was decided that he was going to retire. Schulz drew the comic in advance of its publication, it went out to all the various newspapers, he officially retired. On the 12th of February 2000, the day before it was published, Schulz passed away. Thus, the final Peanuts published just hours after his death ended up kind of being his obituary. Ultimately, it turns out there was no Charles Schulz without Peanuts. He was Peanuts. How did I end up talking about death in a video about Lego sets? Let's move on quickly before I get too maudlin. Last week, 2 new LEGO Ideas projects were approved. Both of them are licensed properties. We've got another comic in the form of Tintin Space Rocket by Tikel86. And this one I feel is going to pair very well with the Peanut set because it is another definitive comic of the 20th century. Tintin, probably alongside Peanuts, is one of those comics which is iconic for the comic more so than any adaptation. Yes, there have been adaptations, but when you think Tintin, you don't think of, with that animated film a few years ago, you think Tintin the comics. I mean, maybe you think that cartoon series that there was back in the day, but even that is so dim and distant now. Really, it is the comics that have endured. Does everything from these hold up in quite the same way that everything from Peanuts holds up? No, I wouldn't say so. There's a few culturally awkward things that we now view from a different light, but definitely there's so much amazing stuff in Tintin that it is hard not to just be impressed by some of the art and the writing and the storytelling that we have in these old comics. As with the Gizmo fan project, this one doesn't contain any minifigures, but I would really like it to contain minifigures. Tintin, for example, Snowy the dog and Captain Haddock would be obvious inclusions. They would just be wonderful to add onto this. But what's fun about this build is that even if you're not like super into Tintin, this is a cool, classic, pulpy looking spaceship at the same time. And we could do with a few more cool, classic, pulpy looking spaceships in LEGO. Just kind of a nice, different flavour to have to complement a bunch of the classic space stuff that we get and all of the Star Wars stuff that we get. Here's a slightly different take on a spaceship. Finally, we have Lego Godzilla by Matt E720. This is what I think of as the Gareth Edwards Godzilla, even though I feel like there have probably been more Godzilla films that weren't directed by Gareth Edwards at this point that used this design. But either way, it's that big, chunky, modern Western Godzilla design rather than any of the older Japanese style designs. I think it is brilliant. It is a lot of fun. This could potentially be a really fun brick-built monster set, the kinds of which we always need in the LEGO catalogue, because they are just always delightful and make for wonderful display pieces. Now this one is one that I would prefer not to have a minifigure in, because it's already kind of minifigure scale anyway. I don't need a teeny tiny little Godzilla to go with it. I don't know who else you would put in there. You put in like, what, Bryan Cranston or something? I'm really dating myself with these specific references I'm making to a particular film from the Godzilla-verse at the moment. That then is all of the LEGO Ideas sets which have definitely been approved for production and are definitely in the works at the moment. There are 2 more sets worth mentioning which are currently in the parking lot. The LEGO group has basically said, we might do these ones, we might not. We haven't quite made up our minds yet. These are Downton Abbey Highclere Castle by Sebastian Veselka and Camping Trip by Rumour again. Downton Abbey I can see being kind of an issue with rights, and the LEGO group might just need a little bit more time to work that out to make sure that they can actually make this LEGO set and feature all of the various different characters that they want to, and actually have it riff off of the TV show Downton Abbey. Camping Trip is interesting because it looks an awful lot like one of the Bricklink Designer Program Series 6 sets that are going to be coming up in the near future. Off-Road Adventure by King Creations. And I do wonder if what the LEGO group has done here is just put that to the side for a second to be like, we need to figure out whether or not we can get away with this one, given that we've already got something which is very similar from Bricklink Designer Program, and especially given that with Bricklink Designer Program, the sky's the limit now, apparently, with how many of these the LEGO group is willing to sell. There are no, like, hard and fast production limits to how many units they're going to make, and maybe they'll feel like they've just already got their fill for this kind of design, selling them to the vast majority of the hardcore LEGO fans that are buying from the Bricklink Designer Program. Or maybe there's something else going on there. Certainly there doesn't seem to be a rights issue with this one, so it might just be that the LEGO group is just kind of just on the fence and not quite sure about it at the moment. Anyway though, that's everything that you can expect over the next couple of years basically from the LEGO Ideas theme. Which of these are your favourites? Let us know in the comments down below, and of course, as mentioned up top, make sure that you do all of the YouTube things. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. If you're going to be purchasing LEGO from the LEGO website in the near future, use the affiliate link in the description, use the QR code that is on screen. They take you straight to the LEGO website and we get a percentage of the sale, and it just helps to keep the lights on at Brick Fanatics. Do make sure that you go to brickfanatics.com for coverage of all things LEGO and sign up to our newsletter so that you never miss anything LEGO related ever again. Thank you very much for watching and have a wonderful day.